Evening, guys. Welcome to another devotional. Today we're going to be continuing on in the Armour of God series that we've been doing the last few weeks, and we're going to be in verse 15 of Ephesians chapter 6 today. It says, "For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news, so that you will be fully prepared." So, imagine a soldier. He's about to go out to war. He's been kitted out with some amazing body armor. This body armor, only tank kind of missiles would be able to take out this body armor. His helmet is just kitted out. There's no way of possibly getting through. This guy is impenetrable. And now imagine this guy is getting sent out, but he's not given any shoes. For one, imagine how ridiculous that would look. This guy, he's kitted out to the nines, and then all of a sudden, he has no shoes. He's barefooted and he's going out to war. Now, don't just imagine how silly that looks, but imagine the practicalities of that. This poor soldier has got to go out and he's got to go and fight. For him, it's going to be okay, this is really impractical, this is really ineffective, I'm not going to be able to fight properly or anything else like that. Then imagine his teammates. They've then got to deal with a guy who can't move properly. He's really unable to go so many different places because he's like, "I'm sorry guys, I didn't have any shoes on." And it's a very silly thing to imagine, but that's what we do when we don't have the gospel on as our shoes. And that's what Paul's saying here. He says, "For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news, so that you will be fully prepared." And we think how ridiculous that is practically, but spiritually, that is also a ridiculous thing not to have those shoes on. Because if you don't have good footwear, you may be perfectly good everywhere else, but you're still going to be unable to move and you're going to be really ineffective. And the gospel is that footing, are those shoes which we should be wearing. Because it gives us our perspective, it gives us our grounding, it gives us that source of peace, as Paul says. Ready with the truth as our perspective with which we can move in and which we can stand in. And ready with the truth as the movement to be able to then actually share out, to say, "Hey, I have this ready. I have the gospel ready. It is always what I've been standing in. It is always ready to be able to be shared out if someone asks what the gospel is. Hey, here's what the gospel is." And then it's also the perspective of how I live my everyday life. To say, "Hey, hang on a minute. How does this stand in light of the gospel? Actually, really, this doesn't matter. This other thing does." So that's really what I should be looking at and what I should be moving towards. When we're facing difficult decisions, looking at it then in light of the gospel. And when we're interacting with those who don't know the gospel, be standing in the gospel then ready to share it. Because the gospel is our peace that we can stand in. It enables us not to get tangled up in the different affairs of this life and actually then start worrying and everything else, because we have the peace instead of all that worry. We have the peace that comes from the gospel and all that is within the gospel. Because it's our perspective, it's what we're standing in. It's the gospel. The fact that God loves us, the fact that he sent his son to die for us, the fact that he's adopted us as his own, the fact that we're made righteous through Christ, the fact that it's not of our own effort. All of these different things are providing that peace that is found in the gospel that we can live life in. The perspective that we can stand in, that we can say, "Actually, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to keep pressing on." And to stand up and to say, "You know what? This is a problem. I need to turn to the Lord." And turning to the Lord, remembering the fact that he loves us. He loved us enough to die for us. He loves us enough to stay with us, to never forsake us. He loves us so much that we can just turn around and say, "Hey," having now been adopted, we can actually call him Father. And we can call out to him as that father-son relationship or that father-daughter relationship. So this is my encouragement to each and every one of us to have the gospel and to put on the gospel as our shoes. That gives us the perspective and the standing that we can move in. The perspective and the standing that we can stay grounded in when people ask us about the gospel. That we can always be ready in season and out of season. That it can be that perspective, that it can be that footing that we're standing in, that will then give us the peace that comes from God, that passes all understanding throughout the tumultuous troubles and worries that this life will bring us. So I just want to encourage each and every one of you guys with that tonight, including myself. God bless you guys.